Gender-based violence, G.B.V, is a serious form of human rights abuse in Uganda. Most of the victims are women and girls, largely because in the community, many regard them as inferior to men and boys. The violence comes in several forms, including sexual, physical assault, female genital mutilation, FGM, emotional and psychological violence. Gender-based violence can lead to death and often leaves the victims traumatized, yet the authorities have given little or no attention to this vice. This is why ActionAid Uganda, a leading human rights organization, partnered with government with support from UK Aid, DFID, intervened in 2016 to reinforce women protection centers in Kampala, Pallisa, Kumi, Kwen, Katakwi, Gulu, Amuru, Nebbi and Mubende districts.
The project of Women Protection Centers, which is being implemented by ActionAid, has an implementing partner. The objectives are around really, one, to support progressive social norm change, where we do a lot of actions to really spark conversations around negative social norms that perpetuate violence. And then we also have the idea of providing safe spaces where women and survivors of gender-based violence can receive services, for example, like accommodation, if it is found that their lives are in danger, and also services like legal aid for those who cannot afford to pay for like court fees or pay for a lawyer, or generally people who find it very difficult to access legal aid.
Gender-based violence is widespread. For example, in just 2018, 15,366 defilement cases, 1,580 rape cases, 13,916 domestic violence, and 396 cases of indecent assault were reported to police countrywide, under a program called the Support of Uganda's Response to Gender Equality, SARG. Monica Aloyo painfully narrates her predicament. She recently survived being killed by a mob in Chambogo, a Kampala suburb. She fled and took refuge in this ActionAid shelter in Bwaise, Kampala. Monica's crime was speaking up for a 5-year-old girl who had been defiled in the neighborhood.
We looked for another Elsie nearby there, and he saved us because we was going to be killed. Even from there, even me, the time we leave, they was already beat me already.
The girl and her guardian's family also fled to this shelter. Monica says the relatives of the suspect assaulted her for reporting to police, who arrested the boy. The unruly villagers also vandalized Monica's home and that of the girl's parents. Police rescued Monica and others and brought them to the shelter.
We have a referral pathway. Just as I said, the police, the medical, the courts of law, the LC1 systems, and then the family. So when a client comes in, we receive them, open a file for them, and then we talk to them. We give them options that they choose from, and either we invite them for mediation or refer them to other actors if the case is of a criminal nature.
Monica is yet to figure out what lies ahead after losing all her belongings and livelihood.
The women that are accommodated in the shelters are really women who are in critical danger. Only if it is established that if this woman is not removed from her home, she may lose her life. That is when we accommodate them. And we use the guidelines from the Ministry of Gender to support with that process.
This is Kwen district in eastern Uganda. We find a gender-based violence survivor being cancelled. Here, community role models, mainly converted men who now understand women's rights, have been co-opted. They are always at hand to mediate cases of gender-based violence and many times couples are reunited.
As Kwen district, we have been experiencing so many cases of sexual and gender-based violences that have come as a result of the social norms that have been put in place by the Sabine culture.
We receive on average about 5 survivors a day. Some of these come for registration as new clients, others come for counseling, and others just come for legal advice. We also conduct mediations through which we aim at amicably having issues resolved for the survivors.
Faith Chebet, a resident of Chepakanel village, is a beneficiary of the Kwen Women's Protection Shelter. When she left her husband due to repeated battering, she fled to the ActionAid's shelter. Peace has now prevailed and the couple works together.
ActionAid Ciao binin kugalia. Ajo e chamta abur goto for almost 6 months. Awaga abundaga. Puma ayola buri ai pokon. Wa jibakan ActionAid.
Akos tagishen item nyegi yugri peji gara ngoin manda braga manda lobaga manda yel ngala to chiodi ko gi gone ta kiya ngala tiya lag machi wa mbanda ki bagi ngala tiya jaga dia ki gone ta kan shi magarga.
The Kwen shelter also ensures that gender-based violence survivors are financially empowered. The Kwen shelter is expanding and a new block is being constructed with the support of DFID and the Kwen district local government. The new block will house the Kwen shelter, currently in the Kwen District Health Center 4.
We are fortunate that DFID gave an amount of money worth 200 million shillings to have the shelter completed, and construction is ongoing. So we are hopeful that much as we have been housed in a 2-roomed building, soon we'll shift to a better place and we'll be able to provide more holistic services to the people that come to us for help.
Susan Chesakit of Kaptani village in Kapchora district now has peace of mind, assured that her 10 acres piece of land is safe from land grabbers. When her husband died in 2000, Susan's in-laws grabbed the land, yet she had 6 orphans. But when she approached ActionAid, the organization mediated to resolve the dispute with her in-laws.
So tinila gaban barandinyo mi kyo kagisle ijo da jima aribe mi jogurun tijo kwani ago le go kwani jabonde.
Susan is now happy. She weaves ropes to fend for her children and grandchildren.
This shelter is really doing a lot of work to rehabilitate the communities, to change the social norms in the Sabine community. So as a district, we really do appreciate ActionAid together with their funders, the Department for International Development, for really helping to facilitate the operation of the shelter.
In Kumi district, the ActionAid Women's Shelter uses the Start Awareness Support Action (SASA) method to inspire social change through music and drama. People learn about the dangers of domestic violence.
I am aware of the various women groups that ActionAid supported in Kumi district and also in Bukeria district, such that even during times of public celebrations like Women's Day, we could have those women in their groups come and display a number of things that they are doing as a sign of their empowerment in the respective communities.
This is how Jeanette Ademoun of Asinge village in Olupe parish found peace in 2019 and reunited with her husband, who was a source of torment. We found them roofing another house in the home state.
ActionAid. Abon lusenejo. I take up an acron in Lucy Jaconai. Samalakini Jengo. A joka. Hakamojong. Quanan AJ. How when at a peta. Yala mikinengo. No quellas when a yalama. Yala mikinengo no priest, the yalama do no cali. Halakunanga a pan. Do. Ah, when I yala mikinin no.
Odo, no polo kunwa yalama dengoda. Aranga twela mumu noi. Akote jijio nutukadana waeka. Konye dodo. Obudo eriongete ngono buas na pikindenge tau. Otomane yari nyoni akirotongin. Toni de ngalo pede dali munde be mamba akoto nyoni akirotongin ne jie. Sondo da konya kabera ya takindengo be. Mamu o klinika ikonai ejio. Atone ngoda tamu ndongo. So do da ne yala mikite ngeriongete ngono poto nguno ya pota chorai nengo. Asodo ngoda itore ngobe atakante nenga diakarte.
Because of the shelter, you know, there is some space for accommodation that is given to the victims, especially at that time when they cannot go back to their families. They stay there, they provide them with meals, from breakfast, lunch, and the rest, but of course they stay there for a number of days. I thank them so much on behalf of the leadership of Kumi and on my own behalf. Aware that where there is G.B.V, such communities cannot develop easily. So we thank DFID and the rest of the partners, ActionAid Uganda, ActionAid International, for their interventions in actually having gender-based violence issues addressed in the district.
In Gulu district, the ActionAid Women's Shelter has been home to many. Esther Abba, a widow from Kirombe in Gulu municipality, fled here after she was thrown out of her late father's property in 2017. She says her sister based in Kampala sold off their ancestral land without her knowledge, but ActionAid intervened and hired lawyers to save her family from becoming destitute. Esther's sister even influenced her arrest, leaving her children homeless, but they took refuge in the ActionAid shelter.
Amero foi matek Gulu shelter gimuti mekuona owero an atieke matiekere owero Gulu shelter okonyo lutina bedo kama leng Gulu shelter bera miyo kony moge lutina wero oloto wacham igangwa owero lutina po winyo marai tutwal Gulu shelter konya ikot magichu matek ikot mapetie gin moe ken muloe gi kot.
Esther is now back home after the legal victory thanks to ActionAid.
I want to thank the donor, UK Aid, for really supporting us, because ideally this should have been the work of government to provide and ensure that these shelters provided the services required. But because the district is incapacitated, ActionAid came in and with support from the different donors. So we are really grateful because we have been able to achieve and also respond to the different violence that has happened to our vulnerable women and girls.
These shelters promote access to justice for gender-based violence survivors as the core objective. In Nebbi, the head of the Police Family Protection Unit lauds the women's shelter in mitigating gender-based violence and its effects.
When we started working with them, it was not easy. Things were hot, cases were made, and women were not open. So when they came in, started moving village to village, door to door, women opened up their now cases freely.
Many women have taken refuge at this shelter near Nebbi town, where they now have hope. When Evelyn Adokorachi's husband married a second wife, he sold off this family house and became violent. She fled with her 4 children to ActionAid, which gave her legal aid. The lawyer guided her through the legal process to save the property. With the threat of court, the husband came for mediation and counseling, and he relented.
I want to thank ActionAid Women's Shelter for having given me refuge, because it was through their voice. When my husband came to learn that, once he insists to sell the land, it is them to back me up.
Evelyn is now a poultry farmer and ably looks after her children in her house.
Now that he has left, what I do during rain season, I do cultivate to also sustain me in terms of finance. So with eating, we have cassava. From maternal area, they've given me plot of land, of which I do cultivate their cassava. And that is how we handle living. Plus the birds here,
Then those that have grown up well, I go and sell them.
The biggest cause of G.B.V is negative cultural practices. You find the culture of patriarchy, men controlling everything. Women are not supposed to talk. Women have no right, has caused all these problems.
Most of our people are not aware about their right. They have been educating women and girls on their right. They have been even the leaders, we women leaders, we have benefited a lot from the shelter.
Bosco Senkumba confesses that mediation changed his violent behavior. After a year of suffering at the hands of her violent husband, Seima Nakalema of Nabingola in Mubende district reported the matter to ActionAid, and she saw peace again.
Ekyandeeta ku ActionAid kituufu embeera yali enfukidde ekirala ng'era kituufu nze mukyala yasulanga ebweru. Nasula ebweru okumala wiiki namba nga nsula miti nga gye nsula nga nina omwana wa myezi 3 n'ensulayo okumala obudde kati ekyavaamu ne bandagirira ku ActionAid nga muno ntambudde ng'era ekituufu bikoze eki nga bigaanye.
Her husband changed, and these days the couple cultivates together after they were cancelled.
Ekyali kiriwo buli muntu kukola bibye. Naye ActionAid bwe yajja n'etuyingiramu ne batukkaanyisa nti amaka gabeerawo kukkiriziganya. Ekyali kiremesezza amaka gange okubeera obulungi. Kyokka bwe twafuna okukkiriziganya tusadi zaffe nga amaze otubuulirira era kwe kulaba nti kati tuli mu mbeera eno. Era singa teyali ActionAid embeera eno singa teriiwo.
We pray and request that we continue running this shelter because we still have a number of women, girls and children who are experiencing gender-based violence and other forms of violence that requires the services that the shelter is providing.
Every time the OCCID makes a report, it is the G.B.V cases that are still on the what? On the lead. And there are actually so many. So meaning that there is still need for our joint interventions as government and also as partners to continue fighting this vice of G.B.V.